Hello and welcome. My name is Joe Miller. I'm a project manager in the Climate and Atmospheric Science branch of the New South Wales Department of Planning, Industry and Environment. In this video, I'm going to show you how to view and interpret climate projections using the interactive map that is available on the Adapt New South Wales website. The Adapt New South Wales website has lots of useful information and resources to help you to understand and interpret the science of climate change and possible climate change impacts. This is essential for effective decision-making by government, business, and community. Using this information will help you make informed decisions. My team develops climate projections under the New South Wales and ACT Regional Climate Modeling Project, which we call NARCLM for short. NARCLM provides high-resolution climate projections for southeastern Australia and was developed in conjunction with the New South Wales Government and the University of New South Wales. The NARCLM projections help our stakeholders, including researchers, modelers, engineers, and decision makers, by supporting them for long-term planning and climate risk and impacts analysis and decision making. This video will cover briefly what NARCLM is, how to use the interactive map on the Adapt New South Wales website to look at regional climate projections, and how to interpret these maps and data to support your climate risk assessments and adaptation planning. Climate models are important for helping us understand what the climate is like from the past to the present and into the future. NARCLM is a project that has responded to a need for high-resolution regional climate projections for New South Wales and ACT. NARCLM climate projections are generated using past weather observations, global and regional climate models, and greenhouse gas emission scenarios to produce an ensemble of regional climate projections for southeastern Australia. The maps on Adapt New South Wales show changes in climate from the baseline period of 1990 to 2009 for a near future period of 2020 to 2039, and a far future period of 2060 to 2079. The interactive map on the Adapt New South Wales website allows us to see how climate change is projected to affect New South Wales. It shows changes in climate variables such as temperature, rainfall, fire, heat, and cold nights. The map can be viewed in two ways: grid view or region view. In region view, you can see how climate change will vary across the planning regions of New South Wales. In most cases, people will use the grid view. In the grid view, you can look at high-resolution grid maps which display an average value for climate change variables for a selected 10-kilometer area. Use the edit map settings to change between climate variables you want to understand more, different seasons, and different time periods in the future. Click on a grid square to view the value for the variable for a location. This is useful if you want to know how climate change will affect a particular location. Today we are going to look closer at the regional map view, which provides summary for planning regions in New South Wales. Let's select Southeast and Tablelands region and choose the time period in the near future, 2020 to 2039. You can see that temperature is already selected and the map is now showing the change in average temperature. The mean or average temperature is projected to increase by 0.7 degrees Celsius by 2030. If you click on the Read More button, additional information becomes available at the bottom of the page. This shows us not just the mean or average temperatures, but the maximum and minimum. It is important to note that while on average, the temperatures seem to change by a small amount, it is the extremes, or maximum and minimum temperatures, that will cause some of the biggest problems for society. For example, minimum temperature is important to note, as this is the overnight temperature. Overnight temperature is an important consideration for public health officials. During heat waves, high overnight temperatures for a few days or week can result in heat strokes or even deaths, and may cause failure of critical infrastructure that have not been designed to cope with extended periods of heat experienced during heat waves. There will be days above 35 degrees. This could pose a risk to our health and delivery of services and transport. For example, we understand from human health studies that prolonged exposure to temperatures over 35 degrees Celsius, even for a few days, can increase health risks. For another example, many state agencies, such as Sydney Trains, enact exposure restrictions for employees if the temperatures remain above 35 degrees Celsius for a prolonged period. Climate change maps also suggest that the likelihood of fires will increase for this region. The independent inquiry into the 2019 and 20 bushfires highlighted climate change as a contributing factor to the preceding drought and conditions that led to the disaster. This is crucial information for managers and planners as we reflect on the 2019-2020 bushfire season and prepare and plan for future seasons. With climate change, cold nights are decreasing, and this will impact on native plants and animals, agriculture, and tourism in the region, especially alpine tourism. For example, in the far future, or 2060 to 2079, the alpine region of New South Wales is expected to have at least 20 fewer cold nights than they experienced in 1990. This means that there will be less days for good snowmaking conditions that has implications for the ski and winter recreation industry. If we click on the rainfall tab, we see there is a small variation in annual rainfall in this time period. However, there is going to be greater variation and changes within seasons. This will cause issues with agriculture, as well as planning for development and mitigating flood risk. Understanding changes in rainfall will be important to specialists who, for example, model the risks of flooding to communities. It is interesting to look at how the variables change when we look at the far future time period. With greater variability in our climate, the nature of our risks, exposure, and vulnerability is changing, meaning that we need to adapt our systems and practices to accommodate to these changes. I have shown you a few ways you can access and interpret climate projection data for New South Wales. If you need more help with interpreting how climate change will impact your region, take a look at the regional snapshots that explain this in more detail. You can also look at the regional vulnerability and assessment information that provides more information developed in consultation with communities to adapt and thrive with climate change. You might want to reference this information when developing climate change risk assessments. You can also access the raw data of NARCLIM that can be used within your own modeling. Simply make a request through the Climate Data portal. Climate change impacts will be felt differently across the state, country, and world. I encourage you to have a look at the interactive map in your own time to explore how climate will change across regions and specific locations. The Adapt New South Wales website provides more information about climate change and its impacts and how to adapt. I hope you found this video useful and you now feel more comfortable with accessing and interpreting climate data.